welcome to Residing in North Idaho. We have a cool guest here today. I'm excited to share. My name is Seth Horst. This is my lovely wife, Kristen Horst. I always say lovely. I don't know. I have to change that up next time. And we have Adrian Phillips with us with Steadfast Home Inspections. And we asked him to come on with us today because he does a lot of cool things, which I find to be very unique. As most people in North Idaho we come across have a unique backgrounds. So I just wanted to have you on and talk about that a little bit today. I guess let's start just to give you a starting point. Are you born and raised in Idaho?
Yes. Born and raised in Idaho. Born in the little podunk town of McCall, Idaho.
Is it still podunk? Because
kind of.
Yeah. Okay.
It's podunk for the people that live there.
Okay.
So,
valid point.
I mean, it's podunk. It's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. It's absolutely beautiful. I like sharing about McCall. It's I'm conflicted because I do really love McCall. But at the same time, I don't like telling people about it. It's like it's like a fishing spot that you want to share with everyone, but at the same time, you don't.
Yes,
I feel like that's how most people in North Idaho feel about North Idaho in general.
Yes. So grew up in McCall, Idaho, small little town, very, very touristy town, right? As you can imagine, with 2 ski resorts and two decently sized lakes for water sports and things like that. Plenty of hiking, and if you're an outdoorsman, there's actually a fair amount of hunting and stuff like that. And but still a small community. So, like I've always had like an affinity for, I guess, watching like movies from like the 80s or stuff. Like not from the 80s, but like depicted of like the 80s and stuff like that. Especially like the kids, they're like on their bikes and they're causing like mayhem.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's like the movie It or like
Have you seen Stranger Things?
Stranger Things, yeah. Exactly. Like where the kids are like, they just kind of go on and do their own thing. That was my childhood.
Such a good way to grow up.
Yeah, in the 2000s. So I consider myself lucky because I don't think like a lot of kids could say that. But I lived on my bike, and I had my dog Chester, Chocolate Lab Chesapeake Bay Retriever mix. And he was awesome. No leash, right? He would just follow me wherever I went. And my grandma, she even had like a cabin right there on the river. It was like a mile from my house. So like when I was like 9, 10, I would jump on my bike, ride down, catch grasshoppers in my lawn, throw in a little Tupperware, go down there. Chester would be with me, keep him out of the water because he wanted to jump in the water, catch a couple of trout, bonk them, throw them the Paul's grocery bag. Paul's was like our local grocer. It was like really run down, like hasn't changed in like 30 years, but that's how the town was. Like, that's what you had, is you had these just lost in time or, frozen in time kind of places. And so, yeah, I would get the fish, go home, bring them to my mom. She would make lunch. And, as middle school, high school, and all that progressed, we got cars. So then our radius of debauchery could increase from where you could get on a bicycle to where you could get on a car, and what you could put in the car, shooting fireworks in the woods and so much more. I mean, it was also a small town. So, as a kid, you don't really understand, and you're not really grateful for the outdoors and the hunting opportunities and all that, all the things that people go there and travel, and spend millions of dollars to visit this place. So by the time high school gets around, it kind of gets a little stale, all these nice things you can do outside. So you had to get creative. And just an example of kind of like my childhood in McCall and what we would do. We used to go to the dump. It was a recycling center, and they had these big bins where people would throw cardboard in. And so first off, it started with us. We had a ladder, and we climbed into these big bins where they were throwing cardboard, and we pulled a ladder in. And so somebody would come by, throw like a piece of cardboard in there, and we would throw it back out. And it was really big things. So like no one's gonna like ever like look in, but people were like weirded out.
Oh yeah.
Like, what's going on? And then from there, we started to take that cardboard. One day we're like, hey, why not? Let's take this cardboard. Let's make Tetris suits for like 10 of our friends. We're all going to be different pieces of like the game Tetris. And then we had a little speaker in one of them playing the Tetris theme song. And we'd like show up to like the grocery store, and the theme song would be playing. And like one of us would start to like pretend like we're the piece navigating, and we'd like, sit right there in the front of the sliding door. And the next person to go, and then management would come down, you get called and be like, hey, you guys are a fire hazard. You got to get out of here. And like, you can't see our face or anything. We're just like cardboard little pieces. And it was a lot of fun. So
small town fun in Idaho right there, dude.
Yeah. And then as we got older, the fun was still harmless. It kind of got a little different.
More beer involved.
Yes. Yeah. One of our favorite things to do was we would go through the neighborhood and we would take all the wind chimes in an entire neighborhood from all the houses and we put them on one person's house.
Oh, jeez.
Or we do that with Christmas decorations. Sometimes we would take kayaks. So people would have their kayaks in their cars. We'd take them off their car and we put them like on their next door neighbor's car, like in the middle of the night. We didn't steal anything, but we were just causing ruckus. So it was a lot of fun.
That's good, clean fun. No one's getting hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can appreciate that.
Yep. Yep. I got so many more stories, but we'll save that for another time.
Move on.
Yeah.
So, how did you, not many people know this about you, but you're a French trained chef. And I know this because we did briefly did a cooking show.
2 episodes.
We have 2 episodes in. It was super fun though.
Yeah.
Obviously, time gets in the way and things, and who knows, but we had a really good time. And you came on and you cooked. Well, let me get it right. Morel cognac cream sauce.
Oh yeah, like a yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we did an elk roast. I had some elk meat that a friend had given me. Elk roast, that, and then I baked fresh sourdough. It was so freaking good. Like,
yeah, it was so
I lost my mind.
Very hearty.
Ate way too much. But that sourdough dipped in that sauce, holy crap.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I have tried once to reproduce it, and I was like,
it was good. It was close. It wasn't
Adrian
over and over, and eventually you'll get it.
I just need you to come over and do it for me.
Yeah. That's fair.
I'll make bread, bro. So how did you go down that road?
Yeah. So, I think this is interesting actually, because, and I think, I don't know how it is in school these days. But you're in high school, it's junior year, all the colleges start to show up and there's a lot of college fairs and they're kind of pushing you to go into college. And I was like, oh, I don't know really what I want to do. And I got sent off to U of I my junior year of summer to Moscow, Idaho, which is a wonderful place if you're there when you're, in college with friends and you can drink. But when you're there in high school and it's just like roasting hot and there's no bodies of water, there's nothing to do, and you're in engineering camp for 8 hours a day for like 3 weeks, it's not so much fun. So I did that. I thought I was going to be an engineer. I thought I was good at math. After I did that, I realized I was not good at, I didn't like math, and it just wasn't fun. And so at that point I was like, well, I don't know what to do. And my mom and dad, my mom's a teacher, but she actually never went to school for it. My dad had a lot of different businesses and he was a builder and also an electrician and, trades and so on and so forth. And so they said, you should do something that is a useful skill. And I think that's important because I think a lot of kids should maybe start with that in mind before they decide to go to college, if they're not dead set, because it's valuable. I mean, as you know, to have a good skill that carries on through life. I'm not a cook anymore, but I'm able to incorporate that here and there if need be, or if I really needed to, I could always go back and work at a restaurant, right? So whatever kind of trade or skill. So my family is from France. My mom was born and raised in France. And I've always cooked in the kitchen of my mom. That's just part of the culture and whatnot. And so my mom said, if you don't know what you want to do, you should maybe go to cooking school because that's a useful skill. And if you're not smart enough to make it through college, I'm sure you're smart enough to cook. And I'm like, that's fair. And she's like, and people always have to eat. And I'm like, that's fair. And she said, and there's restaurants everywhere. And I'm like, yep. And so without my mom telling me, she just signed me up for cooking school and sent off a bunch of photos because they asked for like a little portfolio of like things you've done. So my mom had all these photos of things that I cooked and all that. She sent them off to the cooking school, and I was extremely fortunate. The grandparents helped out, and so she just told me I'm going to cooking school in Paris in August, and I need to start practicing my French. Which I needed to really dust up on, because being the only French kid in the little tiny town of McCall, Idaho, I get picked on for being French. So every time my mom would speak French to me, I'd be like, no, English. No, don't speak to me in French, just English. And now I'm like, in retrospect, I'm like, oh man, I should have learned how to speak French a lot better, especially when you get sent over there. So I did that for a year. It was a great experience. It was like 7 a.m. to like 6 o'clock at night. Really, really amazing school. Had been there for like 110 years. So pretty old school. They had like a restaurant built inside the school. And so every 2 weeks, different groups of kids would basically perform a service in that restaurant. And people would, reserve 6 months and a year in advance to go to this restaurant. Yeah. And it was because it was a good deal, because it was, they only had to pay for the cost of the food, not for like the actual facilities or the cooks and whatnot. And so you do that for 6 months. Really great experience, really intense. After towards the end, the chefs there are trying to get you prepared. So they start throwing things and smashing things and yelling at you.
That sounds more realistic.
Yeah. A very European style of cooking school, which is great.
High stress.
Oh yeah. I remember this one kid, he was cutting stuff up, and he just, bless his heart, he's a nice kid, but just wasn't really good at stuff. And wasn't good at cutting. And like, they were like, no, you got to cut this precisely. Like every little piece of vegetable that's in this soup has to be of the same dimension. Ooh. Otherwise, it's not good. So the chef comes over, he sees that he's messing it up, takes his cutting board, just flips it through the air. Everything goes around. It's like, great, you got to clean it up. And now you got to hurry up because you have a deadline you still have to meet. So you got to start all over.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, ooh, so
don't screw up.
But luckily the chefs were like that, because after you finished your schooling, you would get set up with an internship. That was a big part of the restaurant, is that they had all these relationships of all these restaurants across France and other parts of Europe. And so kind of like the Sorting Hat in Harry Potter, your chef was basically the decider of what restaurant you're going to go to, because they knew all the restaurants and all the chefs and the capacity of work and so on and so forth. And so my chef said, hey, you weren't really good when you showed
McDonald's.
Yeah, right. My chef was like, you weren't really good when you came here, but you learned really quickly. And so I think it's going to be great. We're going to put you in this restaurant. By the way, this is like one of like the hardest chefs to deal with, because he's really bipolar.
Oh gosh.
No.
And so that was the restaurant I got to work at, a bistro called Little Scene. And the chef there was wonderful. He was definitely bipolar. And to make matters even worse, our menu changed weekly.
Oh, wow.
So it was a new menu every single week. So it was really hard to like stay on top of what was going on, and rotating through produce that was always fresh. So we had to make sure we were able to use it all up at the correct quantity, so that there was no carryover. And if there was carryover, how to incorporate it. But it was a great experience. I learned a lot. And as far as work ethic, that's where I got my work ethic.
Oh yeah.
Before that, I had no work ethic. Working in a restaurant, you get work ethic. So,
dude, wild.
Yeah.
So that, and now you have this other skill that I guess comes from your childhood, fly fishing guide.
Oh yes. Well, so disclaimer, I'm not a guide.
Okay. Sorry.
But
yes.
I do impersonate one. I'm not a guide because to be a guide, you have to work under an outfitter.
Oh, okay.
So you can't receive money if you're not under an outfitter. And if you do, it's a big no-no. So
okay.
That's why I have not received any money ever for guiding. But that kind of just came about with me moving up here to Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably a big part of kind of like your guys' podcast too, talking about North Idaho, North Idaho living. When I moved up here, my uncle, he resides in Boise. He's a big time fly fisherman. He said, you've moved to like one of the best places to fly fish, between just the local rivers, and along with that, the neighboring states, and Canada too. Canada has phenomenal fly fishing. And so he gifted me a fly rod, and I taught myself how to fly fish. Growing up, I just had a gear rod, real simple. No one in my family was actually an outdoorsman at all. I was all self-taught. God bless my dad. He was a great dad, and worked really hard, extremely overweight, pushing like 325. He had really bad knees, and all that. So that's why he couldn't even exercise for that matter too. So he wasn't taking me out. My mom was a one of those moms that worked and then come home and then do more work. And then my siblings, neither of them took any interest into like hunting, fishing, or anything like that. So I've always been just self-taught in that regard. And when I moved up here, I got into fly fishing and did that for some time. It was actually the one and only thing that kept my sanity when I started to work as a financial advisor. Because after college or after cooking school, I went to college. After college, I fell for the trap. I did 4 years in a degree that I did not utilize at all, nor do I really remember what I learned. Some have some similar stories there.
Yep.
And then after that, in my junior year, I took on an internship for a financial advising company, a very well-respected one. And I do have a lot of respect for that company and for the network office that I worked in, and the mentors I had, hands down respect for everybody. But financial advising is it's a really tough career, especially when you're a brand new 22-year-old fresh out of college and your social circle is also poor college students or poor graduates,
Right.
and or graduates that have landed a good job but have no sense of money or savings or forward thinking, and that just doesn't really settle in until a little bit later on. So
for sure.
So yeah, I really grinded away at that, and it was a really tough time for me for almost 5 years. But the fly fishing, that was like the one thing that I had that kept me sane, and that was the thing that I would escape to. And when you go out into the woods and you have no cell service and there's no one around, and it's just you, the fish, and your fly rod, it really helps kind of push all the stressors
meditative,
out.
bring it down.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
So good. So I know there's good fly fishing up here, but there's a ton of it because I have a few other clients and friends that are all about it.
Oh yeah.
Doing it.
Yeah. I mean, between all the rivers, the Coeur d'Alene, the St. Joe, the Spokane, the Kootenai, then you got the lakes, right? So if you're like a bass or pike fly fisherman, you've got Canada, if you're willing to go through the border there and whatnot. You got all the rivers up there. You got, the rest of Idaho, Montana, which is like fly fishing Mecca.
Yeah.
It's like only like an hour and a half away to start. And then you can drive for another 4 to hit, numerous rivers. And then, towards Washington, there's also a bunch of rivers over there too. So if you live here within a 3-hour radius, you have a lot of options and a lot of species too. And you're fortunate too if you live here, because you also got down in Lewiston, you have the salmon and the steelhead that run. So you can do that during the winter. So if someone is an avid fly fisherman, this is a phenomenal place to be. There's a lot to do. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. I also wanted to talk about mushrooms.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Not the kind of mushrooms you're thinking about.
The mushrooms that were in the sauce.
Yes.
Not the mushrooms that made you feel saucy.
We had a fun night. No, just kidding.
They look like little brains. They're the weirdest looking things.
Oh, right.
And you introduced me to them. I mean, I've heard of them, of course, but I could not have picked one out ever.
Yeah.
And how did you get into that?
Well, that was a childhood thing.
Okay.
So that was like one of the few things I did. If like, I said that my parents were outdoorsy. My mom would drag me to go huckleberry picking. Don't do that anymore because I slaved away as a child picking huckleberries.
Done with huckleberries.
Oh yeah.
It is hard work.
It is.
We've
They're
gone
awesome.
once. It's awesome, but it's like
Yeah.
one at a time.
It feels very
like-
primal. You're out there just like crouched down, just picking away, man. Like
Oh,
it was rather therapeutic for me.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But I didn't grow up being slave labor of picking.
Oh man, our dog Chester, he was always sequestered to come huckleberry picking because my mom was scared of bears. And he started to learn very quickly that the gallon buckets equated to sitting in the woods getting eaten alive by mosquitoes and just sitting there doing nothing, just watching my mom pick huckleberries. So every time the buckets came out, Chester, he would just like slink away and like go hide in the house.
Dogs are
and my mom's like,
Yeah.
okay, Chester, come on, let's go. And he's like,
no.
I'm good.
I must obey. I don't want to. So, but yeah, I picked mushrooms with my mom, morels, and I don't know really how that came about.
Are they pretty much all over Idaho? I mean, obviously down in McCall, they were there
everywhere, really.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like in the South.
Oh,
I got friends in the South that picked them. They're in like Minnesota. I mean, there's morels in Europe. I remember we used to get giant crates of morels at that restaurant that I worked at.
Yeah.
Every spring. So yeah, they're everywhere. But yeah, morels was kind of the start. Did that when I was a kid. Kind of did it here and there. Did a tiny bit in college when I was back home during the summer and stuff like that. And then when I came up here, I've always, I kind of did a little bit here and there. And then I met my girlfriend, who's very outdoorsy, just like me. And she had done a tiny bit of mushroom picking, but she was like into hiking, and I don't like hiking because it's purposeless. I like mushroom picking because it's hiking with like a reason. But if I'm like, I'm just going to hike.
Makes sense.
I'm like, no, I want to hike to somewhere for some reason. Like I'll go hike like backpacking because I'm like carrying a pack and my destination is setting up a base camp and then fishing or whatever.
Yeah.
But to just hike for the sake of hiking, not for me. So I was like, why don't we go mushroom picking? Like that's like hiking, but it's like an Easter egg hunt because you get to go find things and you get to eat them too, maybe. So we just got into it and we started with morels. But for anybody that's looking to get into picking mushrooms, there's actually you would be surprised as to how much stuff you can actually eat in the woods that tastes great and is free and won't kill you. But there's that kind of that little barrier where people are like, well, I don't know, I don't want to like poison myself.
Right.
That's been my fear always. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of taking your time. It's you just take your time and you just learn. So, you start out with morels, you go out there and you figure out, okay, what does a morel look like? Where does it like to live? And what are the things that kind of look like morels that are not good to eat? That's what you want to do basically with like every mushroom. Like, what are the lookalikes that are poisonous? You want to almost learn those more than like the actual mushroom you're picking, because then you know for certain, like, oh, no, that's not the one you want. But that is, right? And so we started morels, and after a while, we started to learn about chanterelles. And it's kind of great because there's like these different mushrooms that pop off during different times of the year. So it's like there's a season for everything, kind of. So chanterelles, and then lobsters and lion's mane and so on and so forth.
Does all of that grow
Coral.
up here?
Mm-hmm. Coral. Yeah. Yeah. And so every year, if you just kind of go out and make a point of like, hey, I'm going to go try to look for, 3 new mushrooms and like get really good at identifying them, or if you're out in the woods, you see something you're not familiar with, go ahead, take some photos, cut it, take it home, and then do some research and like, thoroughly examine what it is. And, chances are you're going to know exactly what it is, why it is the way it is. Go buy yourself a good mushroom book. But you do that every year. After like 5 years, you're out there and there's like, you bring a basket, you can have like 20 different things in your basket. So a cool little new thing that we found that we've been learning about, it's called Indian ghost pipe. It's actually not a mushroom. It's a plant. But it's a plant that cannot produce chloroform. So it's actually a plant that is parasitic. It attacks trees, right? And so it lives its entire life under the ground. That's why no one has ever seen it. But in the fall, it produces little flowers, and these little flowers pop out, and they're like completely translucent. It looks like clear jelly. It's like the weirdest thing. And these little flowers pop out. And if you pick these flowers, you can actually, so if you pick these flowers, you got to have a little vial of alcohol. You got to put them in the alcohol immediately because it'll start to lose its medicinal value. But this Indian ghost pipe is like nature's aspirin, but like on like a really strong level. So like if you have aches, pains, sores, anything like that, you take these, you take the Indian ghost pipe, put it in the alcohol, you have like a little tincture, and you can take a couple of drops and it clears that stuff up. Wow. And it's also apparently really good for a lot of psychological things like depression, anxiety, PTSD, anything cognitive. So it's like a brain drug from a plant in the woods,
dude.
And it's really cool.
You're such a wealth of information about.
Yeah.
I literally have never heard of that in my life. So that's cool.
I know, right?
Yeah. Neat.
So,
you're a handy guy to have around. Like,
yeah, it's just fun things.
The end of times.
I'll
give you a holler.
And you don't have to pick just mushrooms. You can pick berries or whatever else.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty
it kind of goes along with like, I imagine like you and your guys were all pretty big hunters, right? So it's just a different type of thing.
Well, I can't claim that. My guys are.
Yeah.
I'm working on it.
You're just in proxy.
Yeah.
He talks about it.
I talk about it more than I do it.
Well, you fit the role. I mean,
Okay.
you play the role.
Got
well.
the look at least?
Is that it? All right.
Okay.
Yes, the
That's
North Idaho look.
That's half the battle.
Yeah.
That's the important part.
Yeah.
Looking
I suppose, I guess if you were like a real avid hunter, we wouldn't be sitting here.
Probably not.
It is elk season right
be
now.
in the woods right now. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Probably next weekend. I've got a buddy coming up from California who's got his elk tag and he's ready to go. So
nice.
Jump in with him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll at least do some bow hiking.
Yeah.
Bow hiking. Yes.
Well, good for you is that you do your jiu-jitsu and stuff, right? So you're like very well in shape, you know, like you're ready to go. Because that's like the big thing is people think that hunting's easy.
Oh no. Yeah.
And like if they go like for the first or so time, they don't realize that like they should have been training.
It's a massive amount.
Yeah, he did 10 minutes on the stair stepper
today. I did,
so
that's kind of a big deal, right?
There you go.
Yeah, I'm ready.
And you want to know why he did that 10 minutes on the stair stepper today? Because he did a pull up and tweaked his neck.
First pull up of the day, and I thought I was warmed up. I swear I was warmed up. First pull up.
He's like, "Hey, can I work in with you?"
What's up, girl?
And he's like,
this is why you need your Indian ghost pipe.
Man, I'm old.
Exactly.
Clear that up.
I do. You're right. Yeah. Good idea. Well, we should probably talk about what your business currently.
Yeah.
Which is cool. That's how we actually connected.
Yep.
Steadfast Home Inspections. How did you get into that world? And then what's that look like now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So kind of going back to the whole, working as a financial advisor, I did that for 5 years. I really enjoyed it. That was my first taste of owning my business or owning a business, right? Or being my own boss. One of those three things are all combined, right? And so I knew that as soon as that was coming to end, like there was no way that I was going to go work for the man.
Yeah.
I just couldn't. My dad was a business owner, right? He was a master electrician. He had his own little electrical business, just him, one shop guy. And that was really important, right? Because that meant that he could take me to hockey practice and drive me around the country to go play hockey when I was growing up, right? So I want to afford that same opportunity to my future family. Really the home inspection business, how that just came about was my girlfriend, now friend at the time, we were working together at Northwestern Mutual. When I decided to basically close up shop and turn off the lights for my financial advising business, she's like, "You'd be a great home inspector." I'm like, "Cool. I have no idea what they do." And she's like, "Don't worry about it." Yeah. She's like, "Don't worry about it." She's like, I have a really good friend in Spokane that runs an extremely successful home inspection business. So I met with this said individual and learned about home inspection. And it was kind of a pleasant surprise. Before I met her, I kind of did some research. I'm like, okay, you inspect homes. You got to have a really trained eye. You got to be detail oriented. You got to be able to learn how to work with people, which kind of sounded like financial advising, right? To a degree where it's like, you have to be, you have to learn how to work with people and emotions. You're producing reports and, you're working in their best interest. And so it was very much similar in that sense. I really like that idea. But I was like, well, man, I feel like I need to have a construction background to do this. And so I ended up meeting with this gal. She was very, very successful. And she's like, I used to work as HR at Home Depot. And she's like, well, we did like remodels and, DIY stuff. And my husband's like a contractor. She's like, but like by no means was I like an actual contractor. And so learned a lot from her and just realized that, if you're willing to learn and you're willing to fill that knowledge gap very quickly, the other strengths of being, good with people or knowing how to run a business really, really shine through in this business. It's just, and that's kind of, I think, common with a lot of contractors and stuff like that. There's contractors that run really good businesses and they're also really good contractors. And there's others that are good at their craft, but running a business, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's a lot of things.
That's the hard part. It's not the fun part either. It's like,
yeah. And it's awkward and so on and so forth. So anyways, I met with her and it was great and we were ready to go. And at first I was like, I probably should work under somebody. because I was a little nervous. And so I had done everything I needed to do to get licensed in the state of Washington, because in the state of Idaho, I mean, really the most that is required of you is just to pass a test, and that's it. And it's just like when, as you can imagine, any of those standardized tests where it's, random knowledge.
Yeah.
And does it apply to the real world? So, but I decided to get licensed in Washington, which required 140 hours of classwork, doing 10 mock inspections of a master inspector, passing both state and national tests. And then there's CEs that you have to do every year, so on and so forth. So I decided to go that route. And once I was all wrapped up, I said, I want to work for you. And this individual really wanted to hire me as well. And then there was just kind of there was a change of course, and I won't really go into it too much, but there was a change of course for no reason for me or for her. It was just what she wanted to do for business. And so I said, you know what, that's my opportunity to
There you go.
get into home inspection. Now I knew that just my personality and the way that I operate, I cannot do anything less than satisfactory and exceptional work. So it almost took me like a year and a half to actually become a home inspector, because I was so nervous of missing things and messing up that I reread my home inspection books like 3 times. I did a bunch of coursework, and then I asked like 20 or 30 people that I know that had homes if I could go inspect their homes.
Oh.
So I took like a whole year and a half just really making sure that I had my system dialed in. I knew what I was doing. And then the rest is history. I started my first home inspection, which was terrifying. So,
and you got to like kind of hide it, right? Like,
oh yeah, you gotta
Have
fake it a little bit on the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like the first home inspection was also like, apparently, I guess, like the worst possible home inspection you could have.
Oh no.
Based off of what my instructor told me. He said, don't do new constructions, because they're really hard, because you have to like really know code and things like that.
Mm.
And, a brand new home hasn't had time to wear and tear. So you don't have like signs or indications of things going wrong. And then also the home was like 5,500 square feet. And so that was my first inspection, and I was terrified, but I did it and I survived. And then I did another one and I survived, and I did more and more and more. And I've learned a lot, obviously, and you always learn. But it's, I guess, just par for the course for everything that I've done in life.
Yeah.
I went into cooking school with 0 experience, and by the end of it, I was working in a really nice restaurant in Paris. Got into financial advising. Didn't even go to college for that. Spent 2 years of my college, of my college, studying for all the tests I needed to do to become a financial advisor, and then I ran a successful business. It just didn't really work out, but I helped people, and I had a book of business and sold that off once I left. Right. And I think that's just and then, the fly fishing, all great examples of just, if you're willing, you can just teach yourself and you'll make it happen. It'll be painful. It'll be extremely scary. You'll have a lot of doubt. And you may continue to have doubt, but you just have to remind yourself that everybody, whatever they do, everyone had to start at ground zero.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's really hard for us to do that. We like to compare ourselves to others. We assume that, others know more, or so on and so forth. But it's just it's a great reminder in life for anyone that's watching that, if you're willing, you can make it happen. And that's, great point to make for anybody younger, high schoolers that may be watching our podcast.
Yep. Get past the fear and
realize
just try it.
You can do whatever you want. You just have to want it.
Yep.
And put in the time and the effort and all of that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about why people get home inspections. What is the importance of that when you're buying a home?
Well, yeah,
good question.
Yeah.
You're buying a home. They're expensive. Nowadays, they're also pretty expensive, right? So wouldn't you want to know what's going on with that home, right? No home's perfect, whether it's a new home, if it's an old home. Homes, just like a car, there's they have wear and tear just inherently. They also have wear and tear from people that have lived in them. And so the importance of a home inspection is just knowing that when you are, saying that you're going to buy this, pretty pricey asset, you know what you're getting into. You know what issues may be there already, and what future issues may occur if something was installed incorrectly or so on and so forth. But a home inspection is just an opportunity for you to really, lay down the cards and figure out, okay, what is it going to cost to actually really take care of this thing and bring it back up to, my liking? What are some things that I can do myself? What are projects that I can work on? And then along with that, there's an element of education. When I do an inspection, I try to not only do the inspection, but then also educate the clients on, proper home maintenance and things like that. Sometimes I don't have that opportunity to explain to them in person. And so in my report, and this is actually something I've been working on lately, I want to incorporate more areas in my report that speak to maintenance, maintenance of appliances, maintenance of systems like roofing and plumbing and stuff like that. So that if somebody wants to, they can actually really be a proud homeowner and take care of their asset. So
that's fantastic. I think, and just I've had this experience learning where like the water shut off are and gas and things like that. That's so huge. We had our first house in Paradise we bought. We must not have gotten a home inspection because I did not know where the water shut off was.
Yeah.
Did you drop that thing on the toilet? The back, something fell.
No, it was our babysitter.
Oh yeah. So something fell
and weren't even home.
The toilet water line that came out of the wall was like a PVC pipe.
Oh yeah. Broke.
It snapped it right off and was gushing water out.
Yep.
And no, I was home because I was looking for the water shut off. And it was not in the house. I had to go out and find it in the street, but it was buried under pine needles. It was like pure panic.
And the water's just rushing out.
20 minutes until I found this thing and got the water shut off. And I was like,
yep,
damn, I really should have known. Now, every single house I've bought since then, I'm like, I need to know where that water shut off.
Yep.
If we have a house sitter, I'm like, that's where the water shut off is. You need to freaking know that.
Oh yeah.
So that value.
Those are things that you do not concern yourself with unless there's an emergency.
Right.
Right.
And
then you're screwed.
Late.
So yeah, that's a great example. All my home inspections, the very first page of my home inspection is, here are your shutoffs for your fuel, your water, and your electrical. And now let's talk about the rest of the home. Some homeowners are they're savvy. They know, like you guys, you had one bad experience. Now you've learned from it. So now it's like, even if I didn't put it in the report, you would make a point of figuring out where it is. Right. But yeah, that's a prime example of some level of, educating the client. But
I think that's important because it's like by having your first car, if you haven't been taught how to take care of a car, right?
Oh yeah.
It's kind of shocking as oh gosh, I got to do oil changes. I have to do, rotate tires. I have to get, all these things. Same thing with a house. A lot of people go and they're first time home buyers and.
Oh wait, I have to change air filters. Like what's that?
Because their parents or whatever took care of it and they weren't taught or they even had to do it. So you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So it's good to have a home inspection where some of those things are, pointed out to you and you're learning.
Yeah. And some are dependent on the area. Like up here where it freezes and you come from somewhere that doesn't, you might not know that you need to blow your sprinkler lines out in the winter and clear all the water out of them so they don't freeze solid and break.
Yes.
That's something that people might not know moving here. So good things to find out for sure beforehand before you have the issue.
Yeah. Just like buying a car, let's say you buy a car and you get like a Carfax report, right? And it's like, cool, you got that component, but then, even if you're a first time car buyer, maybe you've owned a couple of cars, maybe learning about a few other things to actually make sure that your car lasts a little bit longer goes a long way. So no different with the home inspections. And I have a wide range of people that I've worked with who are first time home buyers and they know what's going on. So they must have been taught by somebody or they did their own research. Then I've also had people that have bought in multiple homes and they have no clue about anything at all whatsoever.
Yeah.
So
I'm often surprised, and I got to start not being surprised, but I've done a lot of construction. I have a little bit of a background in actual construction, and then we've remodeled a bunch of homes. So I just understand how systems work. And then I need to remind myself sometimes some of these people come in that are even older than me and have no concept of even very basic things. So I try, as we're selling homes and we're going to look at homes, I'm trying to talk them through these things, but still things come up. So it's so important for us as realtors to have a home inspector come in and like explain all of this stuff to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's huge because I can't do it all for sure, or I'll forget something. But having that report that it's all outlined in, yeah, that's absolutely great.
Yeah, and you've seen my reports;
they're very detailed,
lots of photos and everything in between. So.
Yeah, and you have a good way of communicating with people, obviously, from your background.
Yeah,
of being a chef and throwing things.
Yep, I'm just very long-winded, so I just talk to them, and then they eventually just they're like, "All right,
check out." And perfect. Yeah.
No, I just how my brain works. I have to know the why behind something to understand the what. It's just how it is,
and a lot of it's putting people at ease because sometimes people will see this report and freak out and be like, "Oh my God, like we're done. We got to get out." And then that's where you can step in and be like, "No, this is not really a big deal. It's solvable."
Yeah.
Radon comes up sometimes and that scares people. And it's like, hey, it's really not that expensive to get a radon mitigation unit. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
I
would say for anybody that's listening, that's looking at buying a home or whatever, if you do get a home inspection, obviously showing up to the home inspection is probably one of the most valuable things that you can do. And additionally too, do not hesitate to reach out to the guy or gal that did your home inspection and just ask questions, ask for contacts, ask for opinions and things like that. The thing about the home inspection report is that, what's in the report is it's what we're legally bound to. Right. And home inspectors, unfortunately, we do have a big target on our back.
Yeah.
Between buyers, sellers, agents, and whoever else. Right. And all we care about is just doing a good job. But as you know, it's any home of various ages and building styles and additions that have been done and handyman work that's been done and everything in between. It's really hard to sometimes have a very black and white answer to things just because, homes are extremely complex in themselves. And then whatever they've experienced over however long they've been standing. Right.
Yeah.
So when you have that, if you ever have questions, talk to your home inspector because they may be able to give you a little bit more insight or whatever else. And I find that that's just one of the things that are maybe slightly underutilized. People get a home inspection. I send out the report. I reiterate multiple times that they're more than welcome to reach out to me if they have any questions or want any additional just context to what I found. And they choose not to, and then they go, "I don't want to buy the house." And I'm like, well, but you really missed out on that opportunity.
Well, when you get when we get the home inspection report, it is long and it's a lot of information, and it's like you said, even maintenance stuff. So it looks
scary.
Looks very scary to some people, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I can't have I don't want to deal with all this." And
80 pages. This thing must be junk. It's like no.
So we deal with that a lot, calming people down and being like, "Whoa! It has an outlet cover missing somewhere." Is one of the things. Like that's
And that's what I do when I get a new home inspection. Whenever I get a new home inspection, I have to call the client because I have to tell them, okay, we're going to do the inspection. Right. We got it all scheduled, so on and so forth. Okay. Have you ever had a home inspection? Yay or nay? You have? Great. Let me just reiterate what you're getting into. You haven't? Great. Let me tell you what you're getting into.
Yeah,
okay. And then secondly, hey, a home inspection, my job is I have a 3-hour, 2-hour, 3-hour, maybe 4-hour, depending on the size of the home. I have about that much of a time frame to walk through the entire house, get on the roof, go in the attic, go in the crawl space, test the plumbing, electrical, the heating, walk around everywhere, try to see what I can see, because there's personal belongings that block stuff as well, right? But I have a 3-hour window of time to try to make an evaluation of this home and everything that you could know about this home, right? So it's like I have a little tiny snapshot of time. And I'm going to put everything in there that you want to know, but just know that my reports are meant to be scary. That's my job. That's literally what you're paying me to do, is to make a scary report.
Yeah.
Because I want you to have everything out there. And then after that, it's a matter of going, well, these are the big things. So 1, 2, 3. Let's see what we can do here with the seller. And hey, look at this. These are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things that I could probably do myself. And oh, my brother's a plumber. Great. Maybe he can handle these 2 things. And yeah, there's a lot more, but Rome wasn't built in the light. So you're going to get to these at some point, but let's look at this strategically.
And your reports are laid out like that, right? Like
Yep.
urgent and
Yep. There's
moderate and
blue, which is the FYI maintenance and minor stuff. So for example, and one thing I do with my home inspections, I'll take the data tag of like the water heater. The water heater is like 30 years old, still running. I'll go, hey, great, still running. But
Imagine
FYI, typically water heaters last this long. So it'll pop up as a little blue of, hey, begin budgeting for a new water heater, right? Then you have the defects that fall under marginal. So something here isn't correct. Something here isn't operating at its full capacity. And if we don't address it within the next, 2 to 3 years, it may manifest into something much larger, much more expensive, costly, complicated, and or a safety concern. So those are orange. So that might be, like missing granules on the roof. Like I noticed quite a few granules are missing on the roof. It just means that our roof is turning the corner, right? And it's starting to get older. Who knows how much time we have? But if we start to consider maybe some like roof rejuvenation options, I don't know if you guys know about this. I might have shared with you about it, but there's a company out there called RoofMax. They do this amazing thing for anybody that has an asphalt shingle roof. They can actually spray basically an additive to the asphalt shingle roof that acts kind of like an armor all to plastic. It rejuvenates the asphalt shingles, and it also helps keep the remaining granules on the asphalt shingle roof. And it's like 1/10 of the cost of re-roofing, and it can buy you an extra 5 years. And if you do it like proactively, like if you go to the doctor proactively to address ailments you have before they become serious disease, right? It's the same thing. And so if you could do that once, twice, even 3 times for 1/10 of the cost each time, you can almost get a whole nother, roof in a sense, as far as timeline goes, but with very little cost. And so I'll do something like that, for example, for like marginal, like, hey, let's pay attention to this. We've got a window of opportunity here to do something about it. If we don't, it's going to become a major defect. And the majors are the reds, and those are just the straightforward. This is going to be really costly. The roof is absolutely toast.
a safety issue.
Yeah. And I will make a little disclaimer in front of my clients when I'm talking about the safety stuff. There are safety things that pop up that I have to make note of per the standards of practice of being a home inspector, that some people would roll their eyes at. So for example, like anti-tip guard on your oven. If you don't have an anti-tip guard, technically it's a safety hazard. I have to notate it as red. And so this is why I want people to call their home inspectors if they are like flustered when they're looking at the report, because there might be like, 5 or 6 or 7 red things, but 3 of them might just be very simple things like there's no anti-tip guard on your oven.
Yeah.
A little child could climb up on it. It could tip back. It could crush them. What do? You install little brackets that hold the feet down and you slide the oven back in. Easy.
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
Yeah.
Or hand railing. If the hand railing doesn't wrap to the wall, some person could have a jacket. They could be walking down the steps. Their pocket of their jacket hooks onto the railing, and then they trip and break their neck and die. So yes, your hand railing is great. Technically, it's a safety hazard because it doesn't wrap around to the wall. What you do at that point is up to you, but I just have to notate it.
Where most people will be like, I'm not really worried about that.
Yes.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay. So what does it cost a potential client
to do a home inspection? So generally speaking, every home inspector kind of has a different way, or a slightly different way of looking at it. For me, I base my home inspections off of 3 variables. First off, the square footage, right? Bigger home, it's going to take longer to walk through. Age of home. So if it's a new home, everything's usually pretty clean, and it's a lot easier for me to walk through than going through a home that's a lot older and has a lot more stuff going on. Generally speaking, not always the case. And then lastly, how far it is from my office and how far I have to drive. So those are the 3 factors, or the 3 variables I use. Some home inspectors only stick to 2. Some of them have like 8. So everyone's got a different thing. But usually most home inspectors are all kind of in the same ballpark either way, as far as how they justify their quotes. And for me, a home inspection can be anywhere from $350 on the low end to, $700, depending on just how complex the home is.
And
so
is a radon test additional?
Radon test is additional. Yep. For me, I discount. So I have two prices for radon. I have a radon that's like 130 if it's accompanied with a home inspection, 150 if it's not, because if I'm driving to the home, I can put down my radon device and then I only have to come back to that home one more time. Where if it's just a standalone radon test, I have to drive out there, come back, drive out there, come back.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So
but really that price, it's so important because it gives the real estate agents the teeth to now negotiate. Like if we have a good home inspection, instead of just us going in there and saying, oh, there's something wrong with that. Now we have a certified home inspector who says, this is an issue. Like you can't dispute that. And then now it gives us the teeth to go in and negotiate for that.
Well,
So,
and it lets us know, if we need to get a quotes for anything like a new roof or anything. So
Like-
now we can go get an additional quote, and then that's negotiation power for us with the sellers. So
yeah. I mean, what's like the rate of return? That's like really the question, right? So it's like you're buying a home that was built in 1990 and it's 2,000 square feet. I would probably quote like $425. Okay, so it's like 425 bones out of your pocket, but your rate of return is either one, your home somehow surprisingly is perfect. Wow, that's peace of mind.
right.
You're still going to get all the maintenance things I'm going to tell you about. So then, cool, your home's perfect, right? $425 to know that your home's perfect. And in addition, I'm telling you things that you should probably know as far as like maintaining your roof, being mindful about grading and water management and water mitigation around the foundation, things about like flushing your water heater so that you can get more longevity out of it, so on and so forth, all that stuff. So that in itself could, over time could comp the cost of the inspection in the first place. That's like the perfect situation. Usually there's things, right? And so there's always enough things in a home inspection that to have them repaired would be far more than $400.
Right.
So I did an inspection about a month back, and it was for a nice, really beautiful home. Just it's got a lot of character. It's like what I tell them is how I describe my girlfriend. Beautiful, just a lot of character. And cool home, right? The roof was pretty bad. And the guy was a master electrician who was buying this house. So the electrical stuff was like easy peasy for him. He's got that squared away. And he's just a pretty smart, savvy guy. So he already kind of knew what he was getting into. And he was pretty certain about that. He had some questions about the roof. What really just made it perfect is that I went up into when I went onto the roof, there was a lot of indications that this metal roof was having issues. We went into the attic. We saw more stuff. And he told me afterwards, after we got the home inspection, he said, the video, because my home inspections are not just only photos, they're also videos. And I find that videos
really
speak.
Yeah.
It's like, what is it? A picture is like worth 1,000 words. Videos are like worth 1,000,000 words. The video of me sticking my finger through the roof decking, just like,
oh my gosh,
that's a problem.
All that got them $15,000 off the asking price.
Nice.
Yeah.
To fix the roof.
That's fantastic.
And my inspection only cost like $490 or something, $500.
Right. Worth
and,
it.
And you
pretty
can't,
good rate of return.
Seller can't argue that, right? Now, if you had just gone in there and said that roof looks like whatever, they'd be like, it's fine for us. Like, they'd argue it.
We've been living with it.
You can't argue when you're sticking your finger through the roof deck.
Yeah. And I've even had that situation where like I've had people, they're like, well, we want to get a home inspection. We're not sure. No, we're going to pass. And then the agent goes, buyer, go into the attic and tell me what you see. And they go in the attic and they go, oh. And then they call me back up and they go, hey, can we get a home inspection? And the buyer knows everything that's already on the home inspection. And it's just a matter of me going up there and taking the photos, and then they hand it to the seller, and then it's something actually comes from it. Something actually happens.
That's the key.
So in 2020, 2021, and maybe part of 2022, the market was insane, and a lot of people were waiving those inspections. That was scary. I think some of them still got it. They just waived it, so they couldn't go back to the seller with anything, but they still had the.
They still did it for their.
They still did it for their
due diligence / just knowing what they're going to get into.
That's scary, and I never recommend that. We did buy a house we lost our house in a wildfire. And so there was like 30,000 people displaced, and it was impossible to buy a home or rent a home.
Mm-hmm.
So we were in a position where it was like, okay, this house, we like it. It needs to be totally gutted and redone. And we're going to go and pay like 50,000 over asking, even though it's a piece of crap. But we need a home and it's in a great neighborhood. So we did that, and we did not get an inspection because we knew we were tearing it down to the studs, basically.
Yeah. And I went
but I wish
everywhere.
we should have, now that I look back on it, because
it would have. We had teeth in the fight.
We would have had teeth in the fight. Could have saved us.
It
because
needed a
new roof. It needed, there was rot everywhere. It's like we could have gone back after we won the offer, and then been like, oh, wait, but this roof is. But maybe we got it because we waived the inspection, and then we couldn't have used it anyway.
I'm going to blame that one on our agent, and it was not you.
No, it was not me. It was not in real estate at that moment.
No, they that agent should have. Like we were in a very crippled emotional state from
we couldn't
everything.
think clearly. Yeah.
Our agent should have been like, no, you're doing this.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it just, we need to make wise decisions even when things are crazy.
Yeah.
I've had some home inspections where the sellers are getting an inspection done because when they bought the home, they didn't get an inspection because they bought it during that crazy period of time. And then I go in and I go, oh, well, there's this. And did you know that like half your crawl space doesn't have insulation? So it's like, oh, good to know. But at least they're doing the due diligence, because then they're like, well, we didn't get a home inspection before we bought the house. So at least we'll get one before we sell the house, so we can maybe.
I always advise for our sellers to do the home inspection themselves ahead of time, because that way, if there are things to fix, they can fix it ahead of time.
Yep.
And then if the buyer doesn't want to use that home inspection, great, they can go get their own. But what's going to really come up anymore? There's no surprises, right? And then they don't have that negotiation power on that side because there's nothing there.
Yeah.
They've already fixed it all.
Well, and I want to speak to that too. That's actually a really good point that you bring up, that, there is a lot of value to getting an inspection if you are a seller, both for the seller and for the agent, right? The listing agent. One, it just looks a whole lot better. So who knows where this market's going? I'm not a real estate agent. Okay. My job's pretty easy. I go in and I am the bearer of bad news. Okay? You guys do all the negotiation and all that stuff. All right. So I don't know. You guys tell me, what is it looking like right now for sellers? If it gets worse for sellers and sellers are having a hard time selling, right? Wouldn't it be nice to really stand out from the pack and have like an inspection report that's printed off, that's like on the counter, that anybody that comes in be like, okay, I'm going to look through this. And you might have a buyer that goes,
peace of mind.
This is right up my alley. I could fix this.
Yep.
Yeah, that's worth it. Right. Secondly, as a listing agent, and again, as a seller, when you find out about issues, those issues then can be corrected on your timeline.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to
your
be
contractors on your budget.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't have to be expedited. So it's not like you're having to pay extra to get something jammed through last minute.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And then I will say just the disclaimer though here, right? Home inspectors, right? If a person was selling a home or buying a home, let's say, and they got like 5 different home inspectors to do an inspection, you're going to get probably 90% of the same defects are going to pop up on those reports, but every home inspector may have like a different opinion on a certain defect or the severity of it. Again, like I said, like we try to make, the home inspection industry, they try to make it very black and white, like yay, nay, and stuff like that. But like I said, a home's complicated. No one's got a crystal ball. So there's always a margin of opinion, or, I don't know how to really explain it. It's kind of like an appraiser.
Yeah.
Right. So you would hope that,
it's an opinion.
It's an opinion. Yeah. So just know that if somebody out there does decide to get a inspection, whether it's me or any other home inspector, if that seller gets an inspection and the buyer comes in and gets their own home inspector, things may be a little different. Right.
Yeah. Good point.
So
good point. Hey, we're bumping up on an hour, so
here we go.
We're going to call it. That was a fantastic conversation.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
It's fun to learn about you as a person, and then definitely about your business as well and how it ties to real estate. So
yeah, I didn't even black out. This was great.
You did great.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. And how can people find your business?
Yeah. So you can go to the Google machine. You can type in Steadfast Home Inspection, and I'm the one that's based in Coeur d'Alene. That's a little bit of an awkward thing there. I didn't realize that there was another business named Steadfast Home Inspection in Washington.
Okay.
But since he filed with the state of Washington, I filed with the state of
Yeah,
Idaho.
you're good. Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah.
We just happen to be, sister cities right next to each other. We're all good. Great gentleman over there too. Does great work. So, but I'm the one based in Coeur d'Alene. So, but you go to Google, you find me on Google, you find me on Instagram, Facebook, so on and so
and
forth.
we'll put your information in the description so they can find you there
find
too.
you on that as well.
Appreciate
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Adrian.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, brother.
Yes. Thank you guys.
And,
Appreciate
go
it.
get some rails.
Okay. We'll do.
All right.
Spring.
That's right. Bye.
Bye.